Hey there, everyone. It's me, Samuel Broden, and welcome to a brand new season of Honoring Childhood, the podcast, where we have candid and casual conversations on childhood. I am just so excited about all the amazing guests and conversations we're going to be having this season, and I can't wait for you to join us. So, what are you waiting for? Come on, let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Honoring Childhood, the podcast, where we have candid and casual conversations on childhood. I am really excited about this week's episode. We have Natalie Legg here with us, who is an early childhood education advocate and a pre K teacher with 7 years of education experience in public and charter school. She believes that early childhood should be filled with playing and laughter, and I could not agree more. Welcome to the podcast, Natalie. Hi.
Hi,
How are you? I'm so excited to have you on.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm great. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much. Do you want to take just a couple minutes to let folks know a little bit about you and your journey?
Of course. I have been in education 7 years. My first year in education was actually the year COVID hit. Yay
Oh,
me.
okay. Yeah.
Um, I started out in special education as an aide, and I went for special education to kindergarten to now to pre-K. And over the years in pre-K, I have really found my niche and I have really found a love and respect for play. And so often I've found that of all the things we talk about in early childhood, play is the one we ignore the most.
hmm
Um,
I love that. I love that. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about why play is important, why we're not focusing on it as much as we could, how we can bring it more to the forefront of everything that we do. So in your view, in your experience, what is the importance of play for children, for their education? What is it that's important about it?
so for me, especially in a post-COVID world, play
Mm-hmm.
is the most important thing for children to understand the world around them. I saw this a lot when I was first in kindergarten, and kids, because of COVID, could not interact with their peers in any way
Mm.
besides like mimicking through a screen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which is first off incredibly eye-opening to see even then the effects of being in a digital world has on children.
Yeah.
But seeing just like how often they don't get that playtime, and it really
Mm-hmm.
play is so important, and again in understanding just everything in the world around them, their emotions, how they feel about certain topics, how they feel
Mm-hmm.
about friends and parents, and even in some of the situations I've been in, how they feel about it, how you're teaching.
Yeah.
I had a really, I'll never forget this, a really eye-opening experience during free play time one time, and a child was mimicking how I walked kids to like their buses,
Yeah.
and her voice got really loud. And I said, does my voice get loud when I'm taking you to the bus? Maybe it does. Um, but it doesn't seem loud to me, but that was her
Yes.
opinion of my job.
Yes. That's so funny that you say that because I have had similar experiences like that where the children will be like playing in like the dramatic play area or whatever, and they're like doing like teacher in school, and I'm like watching them and listening to them, and like the teacher sounds like so mean or is like really loud or whatever it is, right? And I'll go over there and I'll be like, oh, what are y'all playing? And they're like, oh, we're doing school. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, so you're the teacher. Like, wow, what kind of teacher are you? And they're like, you. And I'm like, wait, what? Is that really me? And so it's like it's definitely a very interesting thing once we kind of like watch their play and see kind of how they observe the world around them in a way that we don't. So I definitely can relate to that, and really just kind of makes me think and be like, okay, maybe I should like think about, huh, that's new for me.
Mhm.
But I think that the whole, you know, this collective trauma of COVID and the pandemic and everything that we've kind of all lived through the last, 5 years or so, I think has really changed so much of what we do in our work, and the way that children interact with each other and interact with the world around them. And so I feel like, yeah, I just feel like now that idea of play as their kind of tool to work through the world around them is even more important than it really ever has been.
Absolutely.
So what does play look like for you in your classroom, in your program? Like what does that look like for
Um,
the kids?
so for our kids, where we're reworking it this year, that's the new thing.
Hmm.
Is pre-K is going to look so different. But at my school last year, we had free floating centers where for like 45 minutes they had table toys, they had Play-Doh, they had a play kitchen, all these things where it's just them, the toys, and their peers go.
Hmm.
And that is huge because you're not having an adult stand over you being like, that's not how you play with that toy.
Yes, yes.
Mhm. And often I see a lot is the overcorrection of play. However they do it is
Mm.
however they do it. Just let them go wild.
Hmm.
And the other thing that my program does is we have 40 minutes of recess playground time,
Hmm.
20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon. Um, and you, first off, I love outside time. I live in
Yes.
Florida. It's hot. I love outside time because you really do see like the letdown of energy,
Mm.
um and them just being able to climb, to run, to tug, to do all these things
Yeah,
that you can't get in a classroom.
totally. And I think that that like overcorrection of play is something that I've noticed so often too, of like of just the adult kind of inserting themselves into what the
Mhm.
children are doing to, I don't know, make sure that they're like doing it right or whatever. And it's just so interesting because I'm like, there is no right or wrong way to doing it. They're just playing. And it's like when
Mhm.
we correct that, or we insert ourselves into it, we're taking away something that they could be learning, or that they could
Mhm.
be understanding more, figuring out more. Um, and I don't know, at least for me, not inserting myself as often was a hard thing for me to make a shift to when I was kind of thinking differently about things. Because when I started teaching, I was that teacher who was like, let's do it this way, let's do it this way, very, traditional in what I was doing when I first started. And so when I started to kind of make a shift and wanting to do things differently, it was hard for me to just take that step back and just kind of let them be and let them play the way that they want. But once I did it, there was so many like cool things that I saw them do or saw them figure out that they probably wouldn't have if I had continued to insert myself. So I don't know. I don't know if you've had that experience too, but it's definitely like the less that I involve myself, the more that I see them doing, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Absolutely. Um, and I, as someone who recently went through an education program, I think part of the problem is they don't prepare you for what play looks like. They tell
Yeah.
you they're supposed to play, but I remember play always being very structured when I was in when
Hmm.
I was in pre-K and even into kindergarten. Yes, you did like centers, but it was very you hold the doll this way, you put
Yeah.
the coat on this way. And I think true freedom of play is all those things just go out the window.
Yeah.
And it's okay if sometimes a baby doll ends up in the oven.
Yes.
Um,
That's funny. But yeah, I mean it is. It's a lot of that having to just think differently, and also just thinking about like I don't know, when I was a kid, the most fun I had was when I was playing without any adults around. Was when
mhm,
I was just playing with, by myself or with my friends and we were just doing whatever it was that came about and we learned from each other and we figured new ways to do things. And so, yeah, I think a lot of I don't know, I feel like a lot of programs have this, they say we do play, we're play based, we're free play, but then it's like there's still so much of that, do it
mhm,
this way, do it that way, only here kind of idea. And it's like that's not really what play is. And once we kind of are able to let go of kind of what we've been told it is and just get back to even just like our own type of play, um,
mhm,
I think is where that change happens because so often too we feel like play is only for the kids and is only for these times. But it's
mhm,
like play is for everyone. And maybe if we spent some more time as adults in play and doing things that we enjoyed, we'd be able to kind of give that same, experience, to the kids as well.
mhm.
Um, how do you talk with the parents and the families about the children's play and what they're learning? Because for me, a lot of times I noticed that it was sometimes a struggle to help the families to understand that, yeah, maybe every day when you come, it looks like the kids are, just playing every time that you're
Mhm.
here, but there's so much that they're doing and that they're getting from it. And so I'd be interested to know kind of like what conversations you have around that with the families or how you help them to understand the value of play for their children too.
So I always tell parents, especially, through social media, is that oftentimes in early childhood education, the what we've done all day will not be in their backpack. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
on their
Mm-hmm.
clothes.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have paint on them. They're going to have food. They're going to have mud and dirt and all these glitter, probably
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in the
Yes.
universe,
Yes.
glitter on their outfit. That is how you know that they're learning, is because they're having those play-based sensorial experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Although it doesn't look like much, it literally is building the foundation for every other experience they're going to have.
Mm-hmm. I always say like your kids are going to be dirty, and that is how you know that it was a good day today. And
Mhm.
if it's a really really great day, I'll be dirty too. And that's how you know we had a really good day. But yeah, I think that is so important for them to understand that you know play is where they're learning. They're learning all of these really important skills both for life and just for themselves, right? Through this play. They're learning, you know, how to be creative, how to use things differently. They're learning how to trust themselves when we're outside and they're trying to climb or whatever they're doing. They're, learning how to resolve conflict with each other when someone has something they want to play with. There's so many of these skills um, that really come from them just having that freedom of play. And also
Mhm.
for us as a teacher, I feel like there's so many opportunities for us to just sit back and watch and learn from them, and also just be there to kind of support and guide them through those things. So let's say there is a time when, there is some conflict happening because, they're trying to figure out who's going to use this material next, That's a great learning opportunity for them and for us to come in and say like, "Hey, do you want some help figuring this out? And here are some ways to do that." So there definitely is a lot more value in the play than I think, parents or families may may put on it, and that's, a huge part of our job too, is kind of sharing that with them.
Absolutely, and I think also a lot of it is when you get into um like a traditional pre-K that's at a school,
Mm-hmm.
they have hard set academics. They're doing notebooks
Yes.
and workbooks and things like that. And I think because that is what they have understood early childhood to be, when
Mm-hmm.
you get into, a center where there is more play, there is more this, they can't understand it
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's literally been taken out of where it's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. And I see that all the time too, is like, because, you know, the parents and the families, they come to us, they don't usually have any education or experience like we do working with children. And so they're basing everything off of what they're seeing, right? And what they're seeing the kids do at school, what they're seeing their friends' kids do, what they're seeing, all these things, it's all that academic based stuff. And so they want the best experience, and they think that is it. And so
Hmm.
when they get into a space that doesn't have that, sometimes it can be difficult to, you know, help them understand that no, this is the important stuff. This is the
Hmm.
stuff that's laying the foundation for kind of what's, you know, going forward. All these kind of academic things that you want your kid to learn, they're going to learn all those things. But what they're learning now is going to support them in doing that. Um, and yeah, I think that's a real big problem, this taking away of play at all ages, but even like as they get older, right? Their play becomes less and less and less a part of their day and a part of their time. And it's important for all ages, and just being inundated with academics, with sit here, do this work, do it this way, and then be done. Like, I don't know, there's such a missing piece in so much of what we do, and I think that play is really the answer to that.
Absolutely. And as I like that you mentioned older grades because I've had so
Hmm.
many discussions with teachers about like the act of taking away of play for like children who can't sit still, who can't do this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're missing the point entirely.
Hmm.
They're literally telling you their body needs to move. Why are
Yes.
you denying them this?
Yes. Yes. That's so big too. And I see that so often still, where it's like, I don't know, I see like play or even like time outside being used as like, well, we weren't doing what we were supposed to do, so now we can't go outside. So now we can't play. So now we can't do this. And it's like, I don't know. That's the thing they should be having the most. And that's,
Hmm.
again, this idea that play is for everyone, but we only view it as something that's for like young children. But it's like we should still be having those opportunities as we continue to grow, right? But it's the opposite,
Hmm.
right? It's less and less and less, to where it's like even with the youngest ages, it's being taken away, or not being used as much. And it's just, I just feel like, so even as adults, I just feel like so much of our lives would be better if we went back to those ideas for ourselves too, where it's like, yeah, we should be playing too, whatever that looks like for you, right? Whatever it looks like, where you're doing something that makes you happy, where you're doing something where you feel like yourself, that's that play. And so I think that helping parents to understand that, helping other teachers to understand that, and giving that experience to the children is so important. What are some of your favorite times that you've seen kids playing? What are some of the things that they do that you just really love watching them do?
So going back to when we're outside, we have a rock wall on our playground.
Ooh.
And for a really, really, really long time, I was like, we're not doing rock wall, please, you're gonna get
Yeah, yeah,
hurt.
yeah, yeah.
And then I saw one afternoon, I did aftercare, and
Hmm.
I saw one little boy climb up the rock wall, and all his friends stood up and looked at him and they clapped. And I had that moment of, first off, that is his Mount Everest right
Yeah,
there. He
totally.
literally just climbed up this rock wall, but also his peers are happy and proud and
Yes.
all these emotions that I was denying him.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so yes, we do rock wall now.
I love that. I love that. That's so cool. That is, I don't know, that's so funny because I don't know, I feel like I'm having so many similar experiences, but there was I think a lot of that type of play always kind of used to, yeah, make me nervous, right? Like, I don't want the kids to get hurt. I don't want you to get hurt. Don't do that. But once I kind of started to let go of that a little bit and kind of teach the children to be able to trust themselves and figure out how it makes them feel, just seeing what they can do and what they can accomplish, right? I had, was one time a boy wanted to climb as high as he could on the tree, and I was like, "Oh God, I don't know." But then I was like, "Okay, let's talk about it. Let's remember, make sure you're checking in and seeing how you feel, and I'll be right here if you need me." And he climbed so high on that tree, and the same thing. Everyone was watching. And then he got down, and he was literally like so excited, and he was running and telling everyone. And that was like in the beginning of the day. At the end of the day, when he went home, that was the first thing he said to his parents when they got there, and he was so proud and he was so excited, and it was just, I don't know, it was so cool to see, and also to realize that that would not have happened if I had stopped him from doing that. And so just seeing, I don't know, for me, that's always the coolest thing is seeing that confidence in the children, seeing them be proud, seeing them work at something and do it themselves and have that sense of pride and excitement is just like, I don't know, it's just like the coolest thing. And yeah, you're right. It's like that's the biggest thing that he could have done. And he did it. And we stepped back and allowed him to do it. And now he's confident. Now
Mhm,
he is learning how to trust his own body and how he feels. And I don't know, it was just really cool. So that's cool that you kind of had that same kind of experience because that was definitely like it was hard for me. It was hard for me, definitely, because yeah, we kind of all have that idea of like, well, I want to make sure the kids are safe and I want to make sure this, right? But it's like we also have to allow them to take risks in order to learn how to be safe and in order to learn these things. And so, I don't know, I always tell people that story whenever they are kind of in that, oh, I don't want them to get hurt or do this. It's like kids are going to get hurt anyways,
mhm.
no matter what it is that we do. We could stop them from climbing every single thing and they're going to get hurt walking back inside to the classroom. So it's like we have to be able to, kind of work past that in order to give them that really cool experience that they had that they wouldn't have had, you know? Um I I love that. I love that so much. Um what Do I'm interested kind of what you think about this. Um, do you ever, while the children are playing, do you ever play like something yourself or play with them or do any kind of like playing, I don't know, as a group with them or involve yourself in a way that isn't like telling them what to do, but just kind of joining in with them?
It depends. So there are times, yes, where like we do like duck, duck, goose,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
we do red light, green light, or we'll like play soccer and kick a ball around. But oftentimes, with the number of children I have to be in more of a zone where I'm watching them
Yeah, yeah.
because there's just so many of them, and I turn
Totally.
my back, and obviously somebody's got a black eye.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I would absolutely love to have a small enough group where I could engage with them in that manner. And like when I did aftercare and I had
Hmm.
11 kids,
Hmm.
I could absolutely engage with them that way.
Yeah,
But that's not something I can do when I have 27 kids.
totally. Totally.
Because it's just literally not safe.
Yeah.
And that's so sad because I know so many of these kids do not get played with at home in that
Mm-hmm.
manner,
Mm-hmm.
unless they have like a sibling, and even then, the sibling probably has homework.
Yeah, totally.
Um, so I mean, yes, but also it just depends.
Yeah, totally. And that can be the struggle too, because you're right. You know, it's like you turn around for literally 5 seconds and you know who knows what has happened over here, and so that can definitely be a struggle. And you know, for me it was, I don't know, like I had to be able to like make sure that if I was playing with them that it was not me being like, you have to let me play with you, or I have to sit
Mhm.
here and play with you, and more of like, I'm interested in playing with you. Is that okay? Or having them ask me to play with them. And then as I am playing with them, still trying to make sure that like I'm not
Mhm.
telling you how to do this. I'm just enjoying this kind of time and space with alongside of you, as opposed to like, you know, bossing you around on how to do it. Because you know, it is fun to have those times with the kids, you know, where we're just enjoying outside with them, we're just enjoying the space with them, and we're just kind of, you know, having that fun. But you know, I think that, I don't know, I think there's so much emphasis placed on what are they learning, you know,
Mhm.
what academic skills are you teaching them so they can be ready to go to school, that I don't know, you're right, we're losing a lot of that play. And it takes people like us, it takes teachers like us to be able to keep that going, keep play really, you know, in the conversation.
It's definitely like a conversation that has to keep happening.
Yeah.
I mentioned before we did this, I've also spoken on another podcast about this issue.
Hmm.
I've gone to PDs, I've gone to all sorts of things, conferences where we've talked about how we can support neurodiverse learners in play. And
Hmm.
it all ends up back with, well, we know play is important, but how are we going to change the curriculum? How are we
Yeah.
going to change the standard? Um, and I always say that first off, if you're not already a part of a teacher organization like a union or the
Hmm.
American
Hmm.
Federation of Teachers, do so, but also advocate. Talk to your representatives, talk to your parents.
Hmm.
Parents, if you're listening to this, you are one of the most important and integral parts of the educational process. If
Hmm.
you do not like what you're seeing, please push for something else.
Yes.
Um, because, you know, where I'm sitting, I can only push so much before it's, we don't like how you're talking back, and you're
Yeah,
gone.
yeah, 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 yeah. I think that's an important thing, right? It's that idea that everyone has a voice to speak up about what they feel like is important. And, you know, it may seem like it's such a big thing to shift, and how can I make this shift? But all of us have the power to make a little bit of a shift, a little bit of a difference, a little bit of a change. And so even us just ensuring that play is important in what we're doing is powerful, and helping the families and the parents to understand that play is important is valuable, because then they're going to tell it to someone else and it's going to continue to build. And so I feel like, you know, all of this, you know, really kind of starts with that experience that we give the children when they're with us. And so no matter, you know, no matter what type of program we're in, there's still little things that we can be doing. Even if we are in a space that doesn't value play as much as we want, there's still those little instances and those little kind of opportunities that we have that we can give to the children. And then, yeah, I think having those conversations with the families, having those conversations with the parents, letting them know, like, this is why we think this is important. This is what your kids are learning. That's important too, because families and parents talk to each other, and they're going to be able to say like, hey, this is what they're doing, this is what they're learning, I think this is cool, let's push for this a little bit more. So it definitely takes all of us um doing doing our part to keep play in the conversation and to keep it at the forefront of what we're doing, especially as it's getting pushed and pushed kind of farther down the list of important things. So I always like to, at the end of all of our podcasts, I always like to kind of ask, I don't know, a random question sometimes, something that is just fun to have to get to know the person a little bit more. So the question that I'm going to ask you is, what is your favorite children's book?
This is a fantastic question. My favorite children's book is actually Goodnight Moon.
Ah,
Um,
I
I
love it.
have loved that book ever since I was a little kid. And even now, when I picture like what a bedroom looks like,
Yes.
it's that bedroom with the green floors and the red
Yes.
walls and a little bitty baby bunny. Um, and I love that book. I don't know what it is. It's my favorite book.
I love that.
Um,
I love that. And it's like, yeah, that is, and even just hearing that makes me feel like relaxed and calm and like just nice. I'm like, oh yeah, that is a wonderful one. I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and talking about play and having this conversation with me. I think you're right. It is so important, and we know how important it is. And so it's a huge part of what we do to make sure that other people know how important it is. And we keep kind of pushing for more of it. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts and sharing your voice. And I'm excited for folks to hear our conversation. So thank you so much.
it was a pleasure, Samuel. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Honoring Childhood, the podcast. And I will see you next week. Hi. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Honoring Childhood, the podcast. Make sure that you like and subscribe and leave me a comment down below to let me know what you thought about this episode. Make sure that you're also following the podcast wherever you may be listening. Also, be sure to check out my books and follow me over on Instagram at Honoring Childhood.